The Rotten Tomatoes score of Game of Thrones creators' new sci-fi show is relieving after GOT Season 8's disastrous reception and backlash. When Game of Thrones Season 1 premiered on HBO in 2011, it was widely accepted as a commendable adaptation of George R.R. Martin's work. However, in terms of profitability, it took Game of Thrones a few more seasons to reign supreme as HBO's most commercially lucrative IP. While most mainstream shows struggle to maintain quality after the first 2 or 3 seasons, HBO's Game of Thrones only promised to improve with each installment. Unfortunately, despite having a solid 7-season run, Game of Thrones failed to end on a high note because of evident narrative inconsistencies and a lack of satisfying payoffs in Season 8. The damage that Game of Thrones Season 8 caused to the HBO series' overall reputation cannot be fixed, but the show's creators' new sci-fi series brings some hope. 3 Body Problems' Rotten Tomatoes score is way better than Game of Thrones Season 8. 3 Body Problems' RT score proves Benioff and Weiss are back in form. Almost throughout its runtime, Game of Thrones barely showed any dips in its overall quality, allowing it to find its place in critics' good books. Owing to this, nearly all Game of Thrones seasons maintained a Rotten Tomatoes score of above 90%. While the first season of the hit HBO series is still touching a Rotten Tomatoes critics of 90% after all these years, seasons 2, 3, and 4 are at a whopping 96%, 96%, and 97%, respectively. The 3 subsequent seasons, 4, 5, and 6, also maintain the book adaptation streak of staying above 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Game of Thrones Season 8, however, stands out like a sore thumb because of its 55% critic score, which is underwhelmingly low for a series that maintained a solid streak of above 90% scores. Fortunately, even though Game of Thrones Season 8 gave the show's creators, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, a slightly bad name, their new Netflix sci-fi show, 3 Body Problem, is seemingly marking their return to form. With a Rotten Tomatoes score of 76%, 3 Body Problem promises to be a lot better than Game of Thrones Season 8, affirming that Benioff and Weiss are back to delivering compelling stories on the small screen. 3 Body Problem is a reminder that David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are good at adaptations. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss can be trusted with direct book-to-screen adaptations. Isa Gonzalez as Augie Salazar in episode 105 of 3 Body Problem. Like most book-to-screen adaptations, Game of Thrones took several creative liberties from its source material even in its opening seasons. However, despite slightly straying away from the original George R.R. Martin books, Benioff and Weiss ensured that HBO's Game of Thrones remained true to the essence of the original stories. The 2 creators seemingly started encountering problems when they ran out of source material content. As a result, Game of Thrones Season 8 significantly declined in quality because it followed a completely original storyline.